What's going on, everybody? Mike Somich coming at you with a top 5 for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, one of the most fun races every year with the Breeders' Cup, and one of the precursors here to Kentucky Derby. Last year, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, absolutely atrocious. We saw Carniche win. That race produced nothing out of it. This year, I think we have a lot better chance of seeing some top-tier horses come out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, so much so that my top 5 is actually going to be a top 6. I got to throw an honorable mention in here just because I think, you got to respect what Brad Cox has been able to do in this race. Last time at Keeneland, he won this race, actually swept the 2-year-olds, Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies and the Colts last time we were here at Keeneland. So let's talk a little bit first about Mo Strike, your winner of the Sanford. This is going to be my honorable mention. This is the one horse from the Brad Cox barn that I want to respect here and I think has a shot in this spot. Going to be a big-time price, going to have to step up, but was the nice winner in the Sanford, ends up running 4th in the Hopeful. We have not seen the horse back since, but that was a good rendition of the Sanford, so I'm interested to see what we're going to get from Mo Strike in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. All right, going on to number 5 now. Let's talk about Blazing Sevens. This horse has just done nothing wrong and improved every single start. Wins first time out, comes back in the Hopeful, which produced Forte, who we'll talk about in a second here. Ran 3rd in that race and then steps forward and wins the Champagne. And the key here is that Champagne was kind of a pace collapse. It set up well for Blazing Sevens to come from off the pace and get the job done. And that's exactly what I think we're going to see here in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile if we do see an upset. It's going to be because there's a ton of pace, and for some reason, Forte isn't the one that runs home because that's the logical closer. But after that, you could go in multiple different directions to try and find a closer. For me, Blazing Sevens makes a ton of sense here if we can get that pace set up early and come from off the pace. So I'll set him at number 5. Now, number 3 and number 4 were really tough for me, because these are two horses that absolutely banged heads in the Keeneland Breeders' Futurity last weekend, and that's Forte and Loggins. Loggins out of the Brad Cox barn. We already talked about Mo Strike a little bit. Loggins probably his best 2-year-old right now, the best shot at winning this race for him. And I'm going to put Loggins at number 4, and this is not because I think Forte is the more talented horse. I actually think the opposite. I think Loggins is the more talented horse. I think Forte is going to get the better setup. So specifically for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I'm going to put Forte at 3 and put Loggins at 4. Now, Loggins in that Breeders' Cup Futurity faced a ton of pace pressure early, was stuck on the rail first turn. Actually, a really nice ride to protect the rail there from Florent Giroux, able to protect that rail, but 3 deep the whole time. So had multiple horses to his outside, was in tight, ran on the hot pace, and was still able to come up and run an absolutely banger race with Forte down the lane. So I thought Loggins showed a ton of talent, but the problem is Loggins is going to face just as much, if not more, pace pressure in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Because of that, I'm going to have Loggins sitting in that 4 spot. Number 3 for me is Forte. I've been high on this horse all year. I picked this horse in the Sanford, and I actually thought he ran pretty well in that race. Ends up running 4th, but was the only horse that made up any ground at any point. So I thought that was a really nice race from Forte there. Comes back and looks dominant in the Hopeful. You get 7-1, amazing price in that spot. Wins pretty easily over Gulfport, Blazing Sevens, and Mo Strike. 2 horses I've already mentioned in this spot. And Gulfport, a very talented horse in his own right if he can get his head right. And then comes back and wins the Breeders' Futurity here at Keeneland from off the pace. And again, that is the key with me for Forte. Why we're sitting in this 3 spot is because he has shown the ability to close. And this race is going to have speed on speed on speed in it, like you'd expect from most 2-year-old stakes races, especially going 2 turns when a lot of these horses have been sprinting coming into this race. Now, the 1 and the 2, I mean, the 1 is obvious, right? Look, it's Cave Rock. We'll get there in a second. The 2 for me is actually National Treasure, the other Bob Baffert horse who ran second behind Cave Rock last weekend at Santa Anita and actually earned the 2nd highest buyer rating for that effort of any 2-year-old that I believe will be in this race. Now, I say that because there's another Bob Baffert that we'll talk about in the Juvenile Turf Sprint who ran a 104 and actually looked very, very good doing so over the dirt, but looks to be pointing toward the turf. And because of that, Speedboat Beach does not make this list, but National Treasure does. And National Treasure, I think, is going to be overlooked in the betting on Breeders' Cup Day as well. You're going to see all this money pour in for Cave Rock. Everyone's going to remember that battle between Loggins and Forte. But you know what? National Treasure is faster than both of them. And National Treasure will be a higher price than both of them in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So I'm going to put National Treasure in the 2 spot. I actually like the Cold Baffert Exacta here. And the number 1 is Cave Rock. And it's really simple. This horse looked phenomenal debut. Looked phenomenal going 2 turns for the first time. Has every right to improve in this spot. I talked about the other speed in here. Not really a problem for Cave Rock because Cave Rock is the speed of the speed. And Keeneland is a great track to be the speed of the speed on. He should be able to just get out and run right past all these horses, get a length lead going into that first turn, and just pull away from them. Now, one very important thing for Cave Rock is going to be the draw. Cave Rock wants to draw inside, specifically inside of Loggins, who could cause some trouble if that's what he decides to do. There's not anyone else that I don't think can go with Cave Rock outside of Loggins, But for my money, I think Cave Rock is able to clear this field. And if Cave Rock clears, Cave Rock becomes very, very, very dangerous. So recap it real quick. Number 1, Cave Rock. Number 2, National Treasure. Number 3, Forte. Number 4, Loggins. Number 5, Blazing Sevens. And an honorable mention to Mo Strike as well, just because we respect that Brad Cox barn. Thank you very much for checking out this top 5 preview for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Really looking forward to this one. I think we actually have a very good field here too. I think this race will project well into the stakes races for next year. So I am looking forward to seeing some of these horses bang heads and just see how good Cave Rock really is. We'll catch you guys later. Make sure you check out all of our previews for the Breeders' Cup Stakes coming up. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the track.
RacingDudes.com is your home for the best betting tips and coverage for the 2022 Breeders' Cup. Our wagering guides have cashed for thousands. You cannot miss our 2022 Inside Track wagering guide to the Breeders' Cup. So hurry up and subscribe, then go to RacingDudes.com. Check out the free picks for every race, every track across the country, and the Inside Track to the Breeders' Cup wagering guide available soon.